Ordinary Yet Extraordinary Animal Communication Stories by Joanne Yeoh. Proud to be Scout. Scout is a partially sighted rescue dog who came into Tracy's life when he was only 6 months old. He went from being a rescue facing death to having his own book and fan base. Scout, or rather Tracy, the guardian of Scout, won a complimentary animal communication session with me in December 2017. I had put a post on my Facebook page asking people with rescues to enter my competition. And from there, Scout caught my attention. He must have obviously guided Tracy to participate in this. I connected with Tracy, and she was over the moon to have won the session. It was something she had wanted to do for a long time. She sent me a list of questions, most of them what I usually get for a communication session, but one of them stood out to me. How does the world look to Scout? You see, Scout is blind in one eye with only limited vision in the other. It was an interesting process trying to start a distance communication with Scout. I initially wanted to send a transcription of the communication to Tracy, but every time I tried to connect, he was telling me he was either busy or he had no time. When I relayed this to Tracy, she confirmed that around that time there had been a lot of changes going on, so he was preoccupied. It already gave me a clue to how clear this dog would be in his communications. So finally, in February 2018, we made an appointment, and I ended up doing a video call session with Scout and Tracy. And also Tracy's two other dogs, Sparky and Misty, also came in for a bit as Tracy had a question about them in regard to Scout. As usual, I started my session connecting with Scout and describing his characteristics to Tracy to make sure I was connected to the right dog. It soon became very clear why he orchestrated it this way, because he was showing me through imagery a lot of movements and gestures that I would not have been able to describe in words as effectively as I could demonstrate them on video. He also wanted Tracy to be an active part of the communication because he has such an amazing bond with her. As I asked Scout about how the world looked to him, he described to me how his sight was like having blinkers on, much like a horse would. He showed me that he uses all of his other senses to see the world and that they are very important to him, especially his hearing. He was very proud of his hearing. And in his own way, he described Tracy as being his guide human. So their unique bond became more apparent during this part of the session. He even called her his sat-nav. He especially loved her tone of voice and how she described the world as she sees it to him. She paints the picture for him, basically being his eyes, his guiding light. He then started to describe his hearing to me. He is especially proud of his hearing and how incredibly sharp it is. He could hear from miles away and he loves the sounds of birds. He is a little worried that this is getting a little less sharp as he's getting older. Not that he's upset, but it's on his mind. He also shared about his teeth. He's very proud of his teeth. He was very clear on that. As it turned out, Tracy brushes them every day. He's a bit of an advocate for good canine dental care, as Tracy always uses him as an example in her work as a vet nurse. It's like he wanted her to have this on record so she could advertise the importance of dental health care even more. So proud of his teeth and mouth. He also shared that he is very proud of his overall health. even describing how clean he is on the inside, internal organs and all, and how happy he is with Tracy taking such good care of him. When we got to the part about his life before he was adopted by Tracy, he wasn't very clear. He did give the image of a sickly mum and feeling distressed about that, but he wasn't caught up in his past. Tracy described how he was found abandoned and how he was almost put to sleep because they felt he was unadoptable, being suspected blind and deaf. This explains why he's so proud of his hearing and why it is so important to him being able to hear actually saved his life, because he responded to sounds, and as a result, a rescue organization decided to give him a chance. And that's how he came to live with Tracy. And he's so happy to be with his mum and dad now. They are the best guardians he could have wished for, which he expresses in several ways during the communication. When we tapped into his lifestyle and if he's happy, he starts describing how he loves how his mum and dad appreciates him on a deeper level, especially Tracy. She's not like most people, Scout says. She really sees him, understands him. Where other people might feel sorry for him or say he's amazing for what he's able to do in spite of his disability, he says Tracy sees him for what he can do because of it. She really understands him on a deeper level. And they share their story to the world. At that point, Scout tells me that he is quite famous. As it turns out, Scout has his own Facebook page and book and own fan base. He and Tracy are on a mission to educate the world about taking care of a dog like Scout. He's even saying he's been on radio, and perhaps the next step might be TV or video. He's so proud of being able to be the ambassador for dogs like him and to be able to educate people how to be there for dogs like himself. And he loves being treated like a normal dog, like a full member of the family, and he loves family time. He loves his two dog companions, Sparky and Misty, and how they are considerate of him, both in their own way. One in a more comical way, and one in a more nurturing way. It just goes to show that dogs do accept and adjust in situations like this, and there can be harmony. His hearing is a thread throughout the communication. It comes up several times. He's very sensitive in his hearing. It goes to show how important his hearing is for him. That's the only real worry he has, losing that sense. I give Tracy a practical tip on how to release some of the worries around that for him. Another thing that came up was his apparent hate for the postman. As it turned out, it wasn't hating at all. Scout described to me it was excitement. It just goes to show how animal communication can change the perspective for us. Sometimes what we think we see or sense is not what is going on for the animal. In Scout's case, it was just excitement about what would be delivered, maybe some new dog toys or some fan mail. The last part of the communication was about whether he understood the impact he had on others. Again, he emphasized that it wasn't him, it was them. They were in it together, as a team. Him, his mum and dad, but especially his mum. Because of them, he knows his self-worth, and this radiated through his aura. One of the most asked questions in an animal communication session is, does my animal know how much I love him? I asked Scout that question. Do you know how much your mum and dad loves you? He responded with, for life. That said it all. They are in it for the long run. These two words were his way of saying, yes, I know, and it is mutual. I love this communication. It gave Tracy answers to questions that she had had on her mind for a while now. It gave Tracy an even deeper insight into Scout and his being. And now she knows she's giving him all he needed and more. In the words of Tracy, I have wanted to do this for Scout for many years and was delighted to be able to have the opportunity to gain an invaluable insight into Scout's life. My biggest worry with Scout was that we asked too much of him. Born with severely restricted vision, we adopted Scout from rescue when he was about 6 months old. We opted not to wrap him in cotton wool because of his disability, but instead aimed to give him as normal a life as possible and to allow him to do all of the things that fully abled dogs can do. What Joanne has given me is the peace of mind and knowledge that everything we have done for Scout has been the right thing for him. Our methods of communication have been clearly understood, and the work that we have done to promote the ownership of blind and partially sighted dogs is as important to Scout as it is to us. All of the aspects of Scout's daily life and experiences communicated to me by Joanne was spot on. I now know my lovely little dog loves to hear birds singing, and he loves his evenings in with the family around him. More than anything, he knows that the love we have for him is for life. I can't thank Joanne enough for her time, and I would recommend her to any of my dog-owning friends, rescue or otherwise, because to know how your dog relates to you and how you can continue to build on that bond is worth so much. Ordinary yet extraordinary. That is what sharing these stories is all about. It is not about the most amazing, mind-blowing sessions I've done, but about those that were maybe not so obvious but ended up holding true gold within. It is about telling the stories from the animal's perspective and how these communications have had an amazing effect on the mutual understanding between pets and their guardians, how they changed the perceptions of their guardians and opened up new ways of living in harmony, of truly living together from a place of mutual respect, of equality. This is dedicated to all the pets and guardians that have placed their trust in me and I have had the honor of communicating with.